All right, we're back with one more interview today on the Friday. I mean, it's Friday. I mean, it's Friday. We got awesome stuff happening. We got knives, another box. What? What's in the box, Nathan? I don't know. I just know that it has something to do with forging. And this guy that I'm going to bring on, guys, you probably have seen him on Forged in Fire. You've seen him. He's gone to shows with us. He's a character. He's a good friend, guys. Let me bring on my buddy Steve Katz. What's going on?
How you doing, everybody? Sweltering down here in Florida.
Right. It's not any less sweltering in South Louisiana, but in South Africa,
it's freezing. Yeah, I heard it's been chilly.
Yeah. So you're in Florida, right? Everybody's expecting you to be in Africa because you're from Africa. What's the deal?
Yeah.
What are you doing in Florida?
So nine and a half years ago, my wife and I received the green card lottery. So basically, it's like a 1% or 10% program of applications get accepted, and you get given a green card to come and make America home.
So what from what I can gather is that you'd rather be in Africa.
Yeah, personally, yes, I probably would be. It's a tough one.
It's family. I know you got family there. You had a big, setup over there, and you had lots of connections to Africa. So what I love about what Steve does, and this is something that you can probably expound on a bit, you take a little bit of Africa and you just
I put it into the work. For me, this whole craft became a way of me accepting immigration.
Yeah.
How could I stay the same person I am with the values that I've been brought up with and portray them to a place that was totally different in all respects?
Right.
So the knives quickly became a way for me to readjust my mindset and say, if I can't live where I love, I can make what I love where I live.
Perfect.
And that's kind of where the mentality came from. I mean, you guys were following me on Facebook and Instagram when I was still working on a balcony of a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah. Well, let's not get too far of ourselves, because I want you to tell me, when you were in Africa, I know that you had told me previously that you made stuff, you did stuff, you were around people that created and made handmade objects and carved and did different things. Tell us a little bit how making knives came out of that, but where did it start?
Definitely started probably when I was about 7 or 8 years old. My father used to make wooden furniture. So it was always helping him out, sanding things, shaping things, working with tools, learning the safety behind tools. And then my mother also worked in the travel and tourism game. So I was able to get out there into different cultures and started to see what they were doing. And we landed up living in various different places. And I got to immerse myself in guys that were carving figurines and things like that. And
a lot of that
when I was about 14 or 15, my dad took over a farm out in the Eastern Transvaal, and it all just sprung up from there. Watching the guys fixing their tools, making the tools that they needed on the farm, and it blew up from there pretty much.
Yeah, and a lot of what you're talking about, you can see even in the stuff that you're making now, the carvings, the African designs that you use on some of the different knives and spears and swords and all kinds of crazy stuff that you come up with, right?
Well, I think culturally, blades link humanity.
Right.
We look at knives as weapons where the mindset is actually very wrong. Knives and tools that were forged in history were predominantly tools. They weren't weapons for mass destruction and horrific acts. They were tools to build life and to build nations. And you see that quite evidently when you witness a local smith back home in South Africa, in the African communities, how his mentality is, it's form over function. It's the duty of the tool that he's making is the foremost thing in his mind, and then comes the outlook. How is he going to make it look?
Function over form. So he wants function. He wants versus I'm going to make this the prettiest knife I've ever made.
100%. And that mentality kind of sticks, because there's a theme that runs throughout the continent of Africa, and that's you rough it to love it.
Right.
And it's just something that goes forward. And then again, in my own personal experiences, where I've worked with conservation industries in anti-poaching, game farm management, NAS quickly became a thing that was an everyday usable object. It fixed Land Rovers, it prepared food, it cut snares, it helped day-to-day activity. And when I got here to the States, not having, I'd say, that stimulus around me, I had to kind of quickly get my hands busy. And Kilimanjaro Creations got born. And it kind of links 16, 17 years of a past history to the future of a new history.
Right. Now, one of the things I love about what you do is that you actually forge all of your stuff. There's no, I mean, I know that you can do it, and we've discussed this before, where you do some stock removal, and basically a lot of it is stock removal. You're forging stuff, and then you're grinding it down, and you're doing stuff, but you don't. I don't see a lot of buying bars of steel, and then you're forging it, you're making steel and doing all of
it. I think that's come about later on in the whole journey that I've been on.
Right.
But forging for me is it's African, it's primal, it brings us back to basics, and that's what I'm after in a lot of the work that I do, is the basic principles of, like, for instance, the Zulu spears that I do. I might make them ornate to show them that, okay, they're going to become a fixture in somebody's living room. But the basics are behind there. It's a forged out tang, it's a forged out blade. And I pride myself in the fact that I'm still doing it the old school way.
Yeah.
A lot of guys have noticed recently that I took over a new workshop, and inside that workshop are some amazing tools. But it still just goes back down to beating steel on an anvil. It's stock removal for me. It's a tough one, because I find the two products don't match where I'm going. Grinding things down, you're very linear. Forging things out, you've got a little bit more freedom. You've got more manipulation going on. And ultimately, it's the pleasure in making the product. It's not just the end product at the end of the day. It's not just a knife that I'm making 5 or 10 of in a series. Mm-hmm. I'm making one-off story pieces that I can attach something I'm feeling here in my soul, in my heart, that I can put it down in something physical and tangible that somebody else might be able to feel the same story.
Yeah. And I think you do a very good job at that. I mean, especially because we all kind of relate to, some people say, well, I have a spirit animal, and it's the lion, or it's the elephant, or the giraffe, and they have these things. And a lot of we connect to is a primal thing that is an animal or an idea. And you do a great job at like taking that and forming it and making something somebody will look at and say, they've never had a custom knife in their hand before. They don't really know what it takes to maybe go into a forge, and the hours you spend, sweat poured into it, just like going after it. And they don't know anything about custom knives, but they know when they see it, they're like, I want that one right there, because I connect to it on a primal way, what you were talking about before.
Yeah. Look, ultimately in any business, emotional sales are good sales.
Right.
Especially as an artist, most art is sold on the perception of what it makes somebody feel. It's just a canvas with a piece of paint, with a bit of paint on it at the end of the day. But it's the emotion that it gives somebody. And look, my market is very nicheified. There's a handful of guys that go for the theme I run. But I'm happy doing it. And for me, there's more about making a living than just the bank balance.
Well, you were talking about that just a little bit before we got on live stream. You were saying that there's also some things that you're doing now that it supersedes a paycheck. I mean, I think you were saying you were helping some university students or something.
well, recently I took over this quite a big. It was an existing blacksmith shop that had gone pretty much insolvent over a 15-month period down here. And I walked into the arrangement and took over the business for the landlord so he could keep the tools in place, pretty much.
Right.
And the vision I had out of there was a premises where like-minded people who wanted to experience what it takes to forge out a knife or learn how to do a basic blacksmith course or get involved in a community around this craft could come and enjoy a period. So I came up with an idea of not really doing a class or a course per se, but an experience.
Right.
Having groups of four to five people coming out, learning the basics of forging a simple blade, learning how to handle that, how to put a handle onto it. Sorry, I jumped the gun there, but learning how to forge out the basic shape, then grind out the profile, heat treat and stabilize the blade, and then put the handle onto it.
Right.
And it's been more rewarding doing things like that, especially with the community down here in West Palm Beach being so diverse. I'd hate to say the word eclectic, but diverse.
Sure.
I've had some real phenomenal people come through here, and it's teaching also keeps me on the principles of basics. It touches on the basic principles every single day, which keeps me going, keeps me getting better in the craft.
Yeah. So you're introducing new people to something that they probably, even just a few hundred years ago, maybe 100 years ago, probably would know something about, and that was making their own tools and doing something with their hands. A lot of times people are just typing out on the keyboard and they're not really getting out there and sweating and knowing what it takes to make something with their hands.
So, and the whole thing has grown within 8 months. I've taken on a certified welding instructor as part of the business, and we're busy training up the Palm Beach State College. All the students that can't make it to the college because of COVID,
right?
They come to us in groups of 4, and we're able to give them their welding hours and then let them leave with a certificate after a period of time.
Well, I appreciate that about you. We want to train and help young people just do their thing, and so I appreciate your investment into their lives. I mean, that's something that really is something that we should all do. Pass it down to the generation.
100%, and the reward is 10 times better than anything I thought it would have been. I mean, some of these guys who couldn't find a job until they got their certificate from us and are now working as essential employees for state companies down here, which has been a blessing. But the core business is teaching the knife skill and creating the knife community down here in West Palm Beach, which, believe it or not, out of the woodwork, all these guys just keep on creeping up on me. It's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, that's what I would want to do. If I was at the beach, not much to do, I'd be like, what do I got to do? Give me a knife.
That's it. I mean, this whole thing for me was an idea born out of watching guys that I know here all day, every day, going to a bar and having a couple of drinks in the afternoon. I was like, there's so much better things you can be doing with your time.
Now, we're going to get into something that some people will know about you. Some of our customers have seen you on and have seen you be a part of this thing called Forged in Fire.
So that was
Wait. So while you do that, I'm going to be opening up this big ACK. Look, there you go, right there. ACK. You sent us some stuff. So while you're giving us the story, the lowdowns, because this is the first time that we've got it on camera recording this. So I mean, you're going to have to tell us the real deal, or somebody's going to call you out and be like, what's going on? And so, tell us.
Okay, so where do I begin? My first blade show, which was, I think, the year we kind of got introduced to each other, where you guys helped me out with the table space at Blade Show.
Yeah.
I put my application in that weekend at Blade Show for the season 3 of Forged in Fire. Went through all the interviews and everything. and then chickened out. Pretty much told them I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And I wasn't. I was far from ready. The stuff I was making was still very, very amateurish in terms of edge geometry. And I felt that I had to let the time go, keep my skill growing to the point where I felt confident enough. And they gave me a call at the midway through season 7 saying that they were having a hard time finding smiths to fill the gaps.
Right.
And would I like to get involved? So I said, you know, it's been 3 years. I've been on the go, working, learning, trying to get my skill level up. Let's do it. Let's do the show.
Yeah.
So weekend of September 11th, 2019, I got flown up to Connecticut, and where we filmed the first initial 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
The show itself, guys, it's purely entertainment. Yes, you do make what you make in 3 hours. There's no gimmick behind that. And I was given a challenge along with the other guys that I went with to forge a canister Damascus in 3 hours out of threaded bars, powdered and sewing needles. So
that sounds like fun.
Yeah,
3 hours. 3 hours to do that?
Yeah. Every time you look at that clock and you're seeing the minutes go by, you start panicking. And I now understand what the show's about. The show's not about your skill as a blacksmith. It's how you overcome the challenge set before you.
Right.
So, yeah, I had challenges. My canister burst midway through forge welding. I managed to save the canister and produce the blade to the parameters. And it was an interesting experience because you're not in your own space. You're not on your own anvil. You're not using your own equipment. Things are set up slightly differently than what you would want it to be. So there were those type of issues coming about in the forge. And then again, the camera's always in your face trying to get an interview with you.
Yeah, for sure.
And but it's really interesting, man. It's something I think most bladesmiths should try and do.
Right.
It's exploded our craft to the next level, where a couple of years ago, bladesmithing was almost forgotten about. There was a handful of us that were full-time smiths. I mean, I still say when I was living in South Africa and I knew Nielsen and Stuart were around the corner from me, God, I would have been spending every single day with them.
Right. But yeah, at that time you weren't making knives though, were you?
I had just done a stock removal course with a maker there, Mike Taggart, and I was doing home builds and making my own things to take into the bush with me when I did my anti-poaching duties. But I wasn't ever thinking of ever becoming a knife maker. I mean, that only came to me about 2016, 3 years into this immigration over here. So there's the Marshall Eagle.
Well, I've got a few knives laying out here for you that I'd like a little explanation now that we've got you here, and show again. Here's what I want you to do. That maybe, you know, I've seen you do this when we go to shows. In fact, even though the rest of the shows the rest of the year have been canceled, it's one thing to buy something online. It's one thing to look at something and say, oh, well, that looks beautiful, or there's something interesting about that. I'll just buy it and see. But there's another thing about being with the maker, going to a show, having something in your hand, getting the story. I mean, because really what you're buying every time, whether it's I'm buying into the story of Steve Katz, who came here from Africa. And one of the things that one day we might do this a little bit later, I want some of our customers to hear why you got here. I know it's a little bit longer story, so we might do a little bit longer thread on how you got here through and why and maybe some of that, because I think that's important for people to know. to that who they're supporting and why they're supporting, you know, certain things. But one of the things that I love, this is just me. Last Safari Club show, that we were with you, I would just sit back and I just watch you, and you would start telling this story about how like the Iqua, like the I don't even know how you say you do it so.
I credit all the years of being a field guide.
Well, and those stories really of there's certain aspects, little details that you put in that some people don't know, like a sheath, your shield right here, and what that means, and how you did it, and why you used a certain leather, or why you used a certain thing. This is, so what I'd like to do is, if you could, I know this is going to be tough because you're there and I'm here and I'm holding stuff, and I'm going to try not to cut myself while I'm doing this. But like you just said just now, you said the eagle, something about the
Martial eagle.
So tell me about.
Okay, so the martial eagle is Africa's largest predatory bird. It's part of the family of 5 true eagles, and a true eagle means that it has fur all the way down to its talon. It doesn't have scales up halfway. That's how we indicate what we call true eagles and false eagles. So being the largest of the species, it is an apex predator. So I've seen the martial eagles come down and pick up little impala and fly off with them, yes. Which is unthinkable if you think of a bird doing that. But you're thinking of a bird that's wingspan is probably double the size of my stretch.
Right.
So, and it's a very proud bird. It's used a lot of symbols throughout the African continent. Countries have it as their national bird, and it's prolific all along the sub-Saharan continent, stretching from East Africa, from Kenya all the way down through Malawi to the Zambezi Valley, all the way into southern Africa.
So one of the things that we can probably relate to is like a bald eagle. I mean, you're in America, that's our national,
No, you see, more that would probably be more the African fish eagle would be more the symbol of the same comparison.
The difference. That's what I'm saying. We know the bald eagle. So tell us the difference between, that might be different.
A martial eagle's coloring is very tawny and white. It's got blacks and white, and it's got a couple of spots on its chest. It really looks martial. It looks like a robust eagle. It's got a big, proud chest. It's got big shoulders. It's got a head with a crest that comes up.
Okay, so everything you just said now, all of those things describe this knife right here. Big, proud. It's got a big crest coming up, and the way that the handle is, and it's not a light knife. In fact, it's got a good little. This is a big chunk of. I don't know if this is silver or what.
Yeah, so that's pewter. That's hand cast pewter.
Yeah.
And then it's sitting on gemsbok horn and ebony with a midsection of a leather stack.
Love it. And you can see where you don't take out every little thing. I mean, some guys polish it out to nothing.
I like to leave the imperfections. There's a mystery in them for me. It kind of looks. It's something you want to use. It's something you want to go and fulfill its story with.
Right. You could feel the hammer mark still on the blade right here.
Yeah, that I'll never change those hammer marks, man. It just makes the knife look really like it comes alive. It becomes a different tool in your hand.
I mean, I just like everything about this one. And this is the sheath for it right here.
Yeah. So the sheath is pretty basic. Again, leather. Then I use the famous South African product, Pratley's Putty, which is like JB Weld on steroids.
Right.
And that gives me a little bit of artistic freedom to do a bit of inlays, stamps, different colorings, make it look like stone or marble or woods.
So perfect. Well, I would say that this is definitely one that you can use, as well as, it would be a great piece to put up in somebody's house that, I mean, because I know a lot of guys, especially at the Safari Club, are looking just for stuff to decorate, and they say,
and it's amazing how that Safari Club has become like not just everything in my business, but the bane of my existence.
Well, these guys just love Africa. I mean, everyone there just loves going to Africa.
And I love how they get together and they'll come to me and ask me, would I make something to donate through to this charity, and that furthers the developments in not just their industry in South Africa, but ultimately the biggest employer in our country, which is travel and tourism.
Right. Now I picked up the next one. And the next one, I mean, the most impressive thing about just picking it up right now is that big lion face right there. Now, that's not just, that's like a 3D.
So, yeah. So when I first began those, I was actually hand carving them out of the epoxy putty.
Right.
And I was introduced to a polyurethane product through a partner of my brother-in-law in South Africa who makes a lot of things for the mines in South Africa out of this product. And he showed me the 2-step process of molding with it. And it's kind of changed the game for me, because the lifelike detail that comes out of it is just phenomenal.
Now, this is not a small knife.
It's a Zambezi chopper. It's got the hippo on the end. And the wood on there is actually sycamore fig. So the sycamore figs grow naturally in deep riverine areas in southern Africa. And that piece of wood, actually, I've had for, I don't know, maybe 19 years. 19, 20 years. So, yeah, 2000, the February 2000 floods in Kruger National Park. That's how long I've had that piece of wood for.
This is almost, now, I mean, it's the scale size is, take it with a grain of salt. So I'm not a huge guy, but this could be a good little machete looking knife for me. I mean, it's a pretty hefty piece.
Well, that's one thing I can say. The Forged in Fire fan base, they don't like the small stuff. They like the big things. So,
well, I have to agree. I like it too. Now, what kind of steel are you using on these?
So those are ADCR V2.
And what would it compare to, just like
comparable to 5160, but a lot more edge retention and a lot more that polish. The polish on it, the shine on it lasts longer than 5160.
All right, so
I call him my Rhodesian cookery. So again,
I see a couple of these from you. These are this is a traditional African like design, right?
No, the blade itself is Nepalese.
Okay.
It filtered into southern Africa because a lot of the Rhodesian regiments and a lot of the South African regiments in World War II were stationed with the British Gurkha and Nepalese units in Burma, Malaysia, North Africa, and various other battlefields around that theater of war. And the cookery kind of stood out to a lot of the tribesmen, especially a lot of the native forces that were sent to these places, as they were nothing but guards. They weren't soldiers.
Right.
And that blade came back with their mentality and landed up in the African cultures because of the sugarcane industry that rapidly grew after World War II in southern Africa.
Yeah, that's a piece.
And the wood on there is also Rhodesian teak, old railway sleeper from one of my family's properties near Zimbabwe.
So really, you go and get stuff from Africa and bring it to America, because I don't hear you saying, okay, well, I bought that, down the road at, Disney World. I hear you saying you're taking stuff from Africa and bringing it over here. I mean, that can't be cheap.
Well, when you're shipping large quantities, it does catch up, does add up. But, I'm going back twice a year to see family, and I'm traveling with both my kids, my wife. We're both all allowed 2 suitcases each. We're going for a 10-day trip. I can bring back quite a bit of stuff with me in that weight allowance. So over the years of finding out, dealers and taxidermists that can get me all the certificates to bring everything in, including the skins and the bones, that's helped me out huge. I would prefer to make with something that's from definitely touch the soil of home than not to.
This looks like some bone here.
So that's actually a hippo bone from a female of a hippo, which I just polished down slightly.
And it's all one piece. I guess the wood and the bone are connected, but it just looks like it's all one piece. And
the tang of the blade is snug into that wooden cap, and that's kind of the force holding everything in together.
Yeah. So this is more of a handheld.
Yeah, based on the puko-ish design, not having a guard and a finger choil. But the old saying goes, buoys are for show and pukos are for pros.
Pros, for sure. Great little sheath right here too. You can hang on.
The sheaths are still a work in progress on my behalf. I just try and fill the theme more so than the function of the sheath.
Right. Yeah, I know guys that do that as well. They'll say, "Hey, look, I'm gonna get a custom knife, but then I'm gonna get I want a side sheath, or I want a horizontal sheath, or I want they get something made to themselves." But these in itself are pieces of the art. These sheaths, even though
they tie in the end product, they fill in the gap of the story pretty much.
For sure. Well, I think that these pieces are excellent. I know that everything we sell pretty quick on the website for you. I'll put them on the website as quick.
As everyone else has said, you guys have been amazing. I mean, I remember when it was just a handful of us makers that were on the list, and now, you're closing on how many now? Must be 70 makers.
Well, probably. We've just added a couple more just in the last couple of weeks because there's guys showing up. I had an interview just a little while ago with a guy named Mitch Clark, who's 26 years old. 26.
Great work he's doing.
Yeah. So,
that's the nice thing about, I'd say, the blade community worldwide is, especially with us South Africans. For a long time, I thought a lot of the South African makers didn't like me, a bit wary. What's this kid doing? But I think now that they understand that I'm not there to harm them in any way. I want to help their markets. I want to grow the South African vision,
right?
Which is entirely what we do. As when we leave our country, we carry our flag, we carry it proudly, even with the crap that goes on in our country. We might, moan about it, but at the end of the day, it's still something to be proud of. And the guys there are doing some amazing work in the blade industry. I mean, some of the stuff is a cut above the rest in other markets, and they fit into this industry so well.
Yeah.
And that's been great. And having them help me get going, that's been the most amazing part of it all.
Well, Steve, I know that there's a lot that we could talk about, and we need to go ahead and just schedule another interview, and probably, the next shipment of knives we get in or whatever. I want to talk to you about some more in-depth stuff. But I know that you got work today. Got stuff going.
I'm headed out to the family up to St. Augustine for a break. I actually was teaching this morning. I had a group of 4 in this morning. And right now it's 109 degrees over here, so I wouldn't put anyone through that in a forge for their first time. I'm not that horrible. But again, whenever, dude, I'm always here. I know I've neglected you guys for a while in terms of the stock level, but I've also I haven't really been making a lot. I've been focusing on the shop. And that's kind of my mindset right now is following a vision that a lot of the makers back home have given me and have added to it for me, with me,
right?
And just try and get that out there. Again, the experience I give, I keep that African feel going. There's braai going while you're there, hammering. There's South African booze and beer, which I am selling also. So if guys are interested in touching some other side of the South African culture, they can give me a shout.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. In fact, I told Lainey the other day, I was like, you know what we need to do? We need to go to Disney World. And then, what she doesn't know is that I'm probably going to make a stop by old Steve Katz and get you to help me forge my first knife.
That'll be an absolute privilege, man. Definitely would be.
We do want to come. And in fact, I talked to Nolan about maybe doing something where we come and we video and we tell people about what you're doing over here in the United States. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate you not because you make great knives. I appreciate you not because you're African. I appreciate you because of your heart for people. And I appreciate your heart for bringing a little bit of Africa to America.
Thank you very much, bud. And that's the same thing again. I mean, our interactions and our travels together to shows have been eye-opening and inspiring. I mean, I have a very different view of America thanks to being with you and Nolan for the times that we've been. And we've had some good times. I mean, we've had some good meals, even better.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking to having a whole lot more. So let's get this coronavirus thing out the way, and then let's just get on with what we do, right?
When I get back from my little excursion in South Florida, or should I say North Florida, I'll send you the next batch of stuff, the bigger stuff that I couldn't get out the first round.
Sounds good, man. Good to talk to you. And we'll be in touch.
And say in regards to all the family, man.
Absolutely. You as well.
See you guys.